Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. And with that, I'll turn it over to Terry.
We're getting a lot of people. We've got one here from South Africa today.
Yes, Simone.
Really? Yeah, we're all over the place. I'm really excited to welcome Geof Jowett today. I've heard wonderful things about Geof. If you've seen his website, you know there's a lot of stuff there. I'll just give you briefly some stuff. Geof is an intuitive medium, author, a healer, mystic, spiritual teacher. He's also an educator. I believe you have a degree in biology or biotechnology. Yeah, there you go. Through public talks and workshops, he helps others on their journey of enlightenment by recognizing that each of us is an eternal and infinite part of God, and that our sole purpose in life is to perpetuate divine love. Geof offers active learning workshops to help people develop their ability to communicate with departed loved ones and spirit guides. It is his passion to promote the expansion of our consciousness, the continuity of life, the laws of nature, intuition, and mediumship, so that we may heal and discover a greater sense of contentment, joy, and peace. Geof's got several books. I just ordered the new one. His first book in 2009 was Hope for Parents Who Have Lost Children. And his latest book is called Lasting Impressions, which commemorates 25 years as a professional medium, providing messages and messages from spirit that gifted both the sitters and Geof with precious messages of kind-heartedness and inspired insight. Geof, I believe, is going to also talk to you about setting up readings for the people that are in this meeting during the next week. Geof, I think is what you said. So, like I said, there's a whole lot here to digest. Check out his website. There's really great stuff there. And I will hand it over to Geof.
Well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today, this beautiful Saturday in Palm Springs. As Terry was saying, I have a scientific background. I decided I'm the skeptical, so I had to go molecular biology, and I got my master's, and I was doing cancer research. And while I was doing cancer research, I was at Roswell Institute in Buffalo, New York, near where I'm from. And we had to do community service projects, and we're like, here we go. But my community project turned out to be my greatest lesson. So I worked with terminally ill children, and one of my greatest teachers in graduate school, her name was Elizabeth. She was an 8-year-old cancer patient, and I would go on Tuesday afternoons to play board games with her. And so the first time we went, we played Candyland, if you've all played Candyland, and she whipped me pretty good in that, and as I got stuck in molasses swamp. But she asked me some really compelling questions. She asked me, like, why are adults all afraid of me? And I said, what do you mean? And she says, they don't look at me like they know I'm leaving. And she said, I'm really happy. I'm gonna go dance the polka with Grandpa up in heaven. And she said, I know it's going to be wonderful, but she says, everyone's so afraid of me. The next time we played the game of life, which was a nice metaphor, and as we were playing that game, she asked a lot more questions just about, what do you think the afterlife's like? And I asked her, like, why are you asking me? And she says, because I know you know. And I said, what do I know? And she says, you know how to talk to the other side. And she said, you know, you're going to help my parents. You're going to help people like that when I cross over. And she said, that's why I'm so happy to spend time with you. The following Tuesday, I went and she wasn't sitting at her usual little table. And the nurse came over and told me she had crossed over that night. And boy, she just left me such a powerful message and an understanding of what my mission was going to be in life. It wasn't going to be about test tubes and bacteria and DNA. It was going to be about connecting with people and connecting them with spirits. And so I worked in biotech for years. I was fortunate. I got to travel all over the country and work with Nobel laureates on genetic experiments. It was just at the peak of biotech. But then I've always had a teaching gene in me. My family are teachers. So I ended up teaching at a number of different universities. And one that I ended up was an art school in Savannah. And I was teaching students how to understand the body from an anatomy perspective using art. But it taught me a lot about clairvoyance. And then soon the president appointed me to be the dean of students. So instantly I had 3,000 children I was responsible for. And so for 4 years, I didn't sleep. They tend to get in trouble between midnight and 4 a.m. So, but I learned a lot about emotional intelligence in that experience. And after Savannah, I moved to Southern California to be the dean of students at a school for alternative medicine. And that was a really great opportunity too, to teach and to learn more about the energy body and so forth. I share these with you because they all help give me a unique perspective that I bring to mediumship and the understanding of life. And I've always been, since I was a little boy, interested in what's next. Where do we go? What happens? And exploring the whole idea of consciousness. I was raised Catholic. I was disciplined pretty good by the nuns early on because I was the one who always asked all the questions that they didn't like to answer. It was a great foundation for me to help understand the continuity of life. They call it eternity, they call it bliss, they call it heaven. There's all different names we have for it. But what I've learned and understand, especially from those in spirit, is that our consciousness survives the death of the physical body. And it has a very beautiful and unique connection with us. And the connection is more feeling based. It's more about that clairsentience, that what we feel in our heart. But what's really beautiful about staying in touch with them is that they have a really unique perspective about our lives. So they can provide encouragement, they can provide insight, they can provide guidance, love, and all from a really unique perspective. In the Native American culture, they call it the eagle's perspective because they're above us. And when you detach from your physical body, you no longer attach to your ego and your personality. And so when they cross over, they have a really beautiful perspective about things. I think one of the most interesting things, though, that Spirit has taught me is that often I heard people talk about how they're guides to us. You know, who's my spirit guide? Who's my spirit guide? And they kind of laugh, especially when I was talking to the children. When I wrote this first book, I was actually writing another book, and the kids from Spirit came through and said, no, we really want you to help our parents understand this. So we're helping them as much as they're helping us. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's a beautiful connection. And that's what's really important for you to understand. As you become inspired and enlightened and providing yourself an afternoon like this to meet up with others, they're meeting with children who have parents that are here too. And you're helping them understand and to progress. One of my favorite types of readings I do is a soul progression, and it's different from a past life progression because I like the idea that your soul is progressing. It's moving forward, and they're being helped by your thoughts and your feelings. They can feel you. They can hear you. And so it's important to keep that doorway open because they have some interesting wisdom coming from that perspective. And the reason why we have such a strong affinity for members within our family is because they're part of our soul family. And within your soul family, individuals are learning similar lessons. And so we reinforce one another in those lessons. And within a family group, a soul group, a child, for example, could have it in their soul agreement that they're going to leave early to help you understand life from a different perspective. It might have to do with trusting and love, believing in things you can't see, acceptance, and also helping you get rid of guilt and shame and all those feelings that tend to be that screaming little 2-year-old ego that likes to keep us up late at night. So it helps us in that whole progression. And as far as spirits go, when they leave their body, one of the number one questions I get from parents is, do they miss us? And they don't like the answer I say, but I say no, because they don't see a separation. They know they're connected. They're like, why aren't they getting this? Like, I'm connected. I'm not going anywhere. And it's an interesting perspective that they present to us. So children especially are really interesting to me. And ever since I was a little boy, those are the spirits that tended to come around me a lot, because I love their innocence and I love their adventurous nature. They tend to carry that into spirit. Like, they just want to go explore, and they want to know, and they want to grow, and they want to share. That's what's so important. They just want to share, and they are constantly sending messages. It's just sometimes we're not in a place of awareness where we're hearing or feeling those messages. So the goal, I think, as anyone in this physical plane, is to elevate your consciousness enough so that you can be in touch with the spiritual realm. So a lot of times people too ask me, where's the spirit world? And the spirit world overlaps the physical world. And the analogy I like to use in my workshops is, you can think of a radio. There's all different kinds of radio waves, frequencies vibrating through the air, but we have instruments that can tune into like 95.5 or 106.7, but those waves are in the same space. Well, your spirit children are in the same space. They're just at a higher frequency. And the idea is if we can elevate our consciousness. So in the physical world, we're at a lower frequency, spiritual world's up here. But if we can elevate our frequency, we have a greater chance to make that connection. There's less static or less noise between those two extremes. So things like meditation, journaling, going for a walk in nature, just doing things you really like doing, cooking, gardening, any of your passions. My connections come in tennis and running and hiking, a lot of physical stuff. But it's providing a space so that you can allow to come through what's to come through. And it's not always the people that you might suspect to hear from, and it might not be the message that you're transmitting out, but they'll have a way to get to you. And that's what I think is so beautiful and magical about it. To me, the greatest validation for any type of messaging has to do with synchronicity. When you recognize the synchronicities that are existing within your life, turning that song on the radio, let's say you're planning a trip to Hawaii and a song comes on about Hawaii, and then you go to the grocery store and someone in front of you is talking about Hawaii, and then you look down at the National Enquirer and there's a story about Hawaii. Those types of synchronicities are very important. Your children in spirit are going to be clever, and they're going to be very intent on getting messages through to you. And they'll try a number of different ways. And many times that means talking to other people. I'm sure some of you have heard, like, how come my friend can hear from my son or daughter? Or how come this person does and I'm not? And they're easily accessible, and they know who's accessible. The way they describe it is that people that are accessible, it's like they have a light above their head. And the more accessible they are, the brighter the light, so they're drawn to the light. And so if we can put ourselves and imagine thinking, feeling, believing, and acting in ways that we're expanding our light, you're going to have lots and lots of spirits around you knocking on your door. So as a medium, I like to teach people that there's basically 4 aspects of mediumship. Okay, there's the spirit, there's the medium and the sitter. But the other important aspect is the message. And messages are important because messages, what I have found is that many times people don't understand a message because they haven't fully comprehended it or they haven't sat with it. And I don't know if any of you have had experience with a reading, but what I find even when I get readings is they have a lot more meaning a day, 2, 3, or 4 later after I sat with it and I could feel it. But also I'll get some validations from things that are presented. And to me, that is just, talk about miraculous, talk about magical, and talk about mystical. It's more fun playing in that realm than it is in the physical a lot of times, especially some of the things, the challenges that have been thrown at our society now. And what your kids are saying in spirit, you know, it's funny what lighten up, don't be so serious. You know, it's like going on a roller coaster. You got to kind of go up and hold on tight when you're going down, but just enjoy the ride. And, you know, just don't take things so seriously. That's the common messages I've been hearing lately with all that's going on. But the other thing that's important is using your heart as your compass and allowing that to guide you on your journey. So Terry had mentioned the last book that I wrote really celebrates the last 25 years of mediumship with me. And I was working with a publisher and they wanted me to write a book about describing mediumship. And for over a year, I tried to write mechanically like a scientist, and it was boring and it was dry. And I would read it to people and they're like, yeah, that sounds nice, but not very interesting. Now, I grew up with 5 sisters, and my sisters, I never got a word in edgewise growing up, so I became a good listener, and that's an important aspect or attribute of mediumship. But when they talk to me, they always want to hear a story. Like, tell me a story from a reading. Tell us, you know, I want to hear about the stories. So what this book consists of is 25 stories, those aha moments from readings, to teach you about readings through stories. And they're set up in these 4 categories. So there's 5 stories that are from the perspective of spirit. And one of the favorite stories from that section is about, both of these happen within a month or so of each other, but I actually was doing a reading. 3 sisters came for a reading. And during the reading, their mother came through, and their mother said, oh, I talk to you all the time. You used to do readings for me. So I told them that, and I was as amazed as they were. And they actually brought the journal that she kept track, and they never knew she talked to a medium. And my contact information was in there, so that's how she made a connection. Another time, a short span, 3 different sisters contacted me because their 4th sister had passed. Now, one sister was from Hawaii, one sister was from Illinois, and one was in Florida. Different names and so forth. So I didn't know they were connected, but each time the sister came through and said, hey, I talked to you. I made the connection. So that was amazing to me, that even when they go into the spiritual realm, they had the memory of talking, you know, to a medium. The second group are from the perspective of the sitter, the person receiving the message. And when you're getting a reading and when you're playing that role as sitter, it's really important that you engage energetically and be open to what's presented. And the favorite story in that section is I did a reading for a mother over the phone. Her son came through and he kept using his hands. And she said, can you tell me what he's doing with his hands? He was actually spelling his name out in sign. And so I said to her, does that make sense? And she said, yeah, because he was deaf. And she said, we spoke in sign. And I said, oh, that to me, that's pretty good, solid evidence. A couple weeks later, I got another lady called me, and her grandson came through. And her grandson talked about how he loved her pancakes. She used to make him pancakes when he'd go visit her, and they gardened together and they had certain activities. So about a week after that reading, the mom and the grandmother, who they were mother and daughter, they said, you know, how come when my son came through to talk to my mother, he didn't talk about sign? You did it in my reading. And I asked the grandmother, I said, do you know sign? She said, no. And I said, well, you know, he didn't use sign because you don't use sign. They're very specific to what your personal connection is to them. And I did a workshop this morning, and I've been doing a series of these where the workshop, the purpose of it is to connect you with a specific loved one on the other side. And we do visuals, auditory, sensory, smell, taste, touch things. And they're very unique to that individual. And then in the next session, we'll do another person, and you'll see that your personal history will be different from person to person, but it's very important that you recognize these things because you create a code of communication with your loved one. So your children are speaking to you. It's just they're not speaking in the way they would if they were in physical, but they're going to use your history, the things that you liked or had in common, or the things that drove you crazy. They're good at pushing buttons too, but they want to get your attention and they want to share with you that way. The third part of the book has to do with the medium and stories around that. And the final part is the messages. And an example I use in the message section is my mom and her friends are very good Catholic ladies. Like they, you know, ultra rosary society and stuff, and they're real connected, and they were a little kind of skeptical about this spiritual stuff. So my mom's best friend, they're like Lucy and Ethel, you know, just constantly joking and enjoying their time. Well, my mom's friend Sandy's mom passed away. And so I went to have dinner with them, and she said, Geof, you know, I'm so disappointed. You know, my mom was so boisterous, she doesn't show up. And I said, well, your mom's telling me, I see her in with the washer and the dryer. There's a message there for you with a washer and dryer. I can't tell you exactly, but I know she was a clean freak and so forth. But I said, I also see on Christmas a red flower blossoming, like matching red for Christmas. So sure enough, a couple weeks later on Mother's Day, Sandy was doing laundry. And when she went through the lint thing, she found a tag that she had put on her mom's clothes because her mom had to go into a home and she washed her clothes. So, you know, that was a great symbol. And on Christmas in Buffalo, where there's 2 feet of snow, she had a flower that came up and blossomed red. So again, it was showing how beautiful signs and symbols are and how they really truly like to reinforce us, to make us believers, so that we accept and that we'll be open to hear from them. The other beautiful thing is once you open that doorway, you can also be the medium for other people in your family, and you can spread their message and their word, because they're ambitious, they're anxious, they want to share. Now, if you've had a child that went through a challenging time before they passed, the good news always is the challenge is done. The challenge is over, but the lesson is being processed. So when they cross over, they do a life review and they look. And it's beautiful because there's not judgment about the actions here, but there's a review of the process of maybe if I did it this way, the outcome could have been that way. Or maybe if I would have done it this way, the outcome would have been this other way. But what's important is they understand and take responsibility for their actions. You know, when I used to teach, the students would always laugh, but the very first day, because the first day is usually not much going on, I teach them about the 4 R's. But the kids in spirit actually taught me the 4 R's that I passed down. The first is responsibility. It's important to take responsibility for things. The second R is respectful, being respectful with ourselves. Third one is resourceful, being resourceful with all the resources we use. And the last one is being reasonable. And so applying those 4 R's is really important for them on that side, but they'll tend to show that to you on this side. You know, when it comes to disease, for those of you who have lost someone who went through some type of disease or dysfunction, there's a very important lesson where they learn about the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, and even the karma that can be related to the energy that caused that disruption or that dysfunction or that dis-ease, becoming uneasy. And again, that's really important because they'll learn how to master that for future lifetimes. But they'll also be trying to help you to understand that in your current life. When I was in my master's program doing cancer research, part of our program was epidemiology. So we were looking at disease patterns. And what I found interesting is that within a family, there tends to be certain diseases. And the big question is, for example, is there a breast cancer gene? Is there a pancreas cancer gene, and so forth? I do believe there's genes that code sometimes for these things, but more importantly, I believe there's an attitude or a belief system within a family that causes the genetic material to orient a certain way so that a certain disease might be more likely to happen or not. And in my thesis program, I studied what was called garbage DNA. It's the filler DNA. It's the stuff that just in 95% of your DNA is filler DNA, but it actually changes shape with thoughts, feelings, emotions, and so forth. So that to me shows the mind, body, soul connection. But I could go on and on and on and talk, but I wanted to share with you a little bit about my insight relative to spirit communication, but I'd love to address some of your questions and help bring you clarity and understanding so that you can open that door and you can enjoy the development of yourself with your child. It's like you're both in school and you can be learning the same lessons, and it's invaluable.
Great. Guys, I've said it, so we could do one at a time. Unmute yourself. If you know how to raise your hand on Zoom, do that. Or you can type it in the chat box, however you'd like to do that. So whoever has a question? Anybody have a question?
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
I know that you talked a little bit about this, Geof, but I would love, this is something that parents can't get enough of. Could you talk about what our kids are doing on the other side and a little bit about what they're up to? It would be so nice to have your perspective on that.
Absolutely. And that's what I cover in this first book. And what was fun writing this book is they inspired me to use quotes from kids' books like Dr. Seuss and Snow White and so forth. But, you know, when they get to the other side, you come into an understanding of the meaning of your life. And then you start to see the connection you have with those that are here. When we come into the physical plane, we come here to experience emotions. So many times people ask, like, why do we even come here? Why are we incarnated? Well, we come here to deal with emotions. This is the emotional plane. And we're very, very brave to come here because emotions are difficult. So when the child leaves the body and crosses over, they assess their emotions. What emotions were dominant around me, and what influence did they have on my state of being, my state of consciousness? But they also then review the relationships, and relationships are really important. The gurus call relationships the great mirror because we reflect to each other our perspective about things, how we react to things, and the actions we take. So when someone is presented to us and we have a certain reaction to them, it's never about that person, it's about us, because they're showing us something. And if there's a conflict, they're showing you, it's a call to healing. Like, this is an area that perhaps I need to heal on more. It might have to do with patience. It might have to do with forgiveness. It might have to do with self-love or self-respect or letting go of suffering. And so your children will go through an assessment process. And in that, they look at relationships, they look at their emotions, but essentially they're looking at their karma. And one of my favorite workshops to teach is on karma, because I think it's one of the most misunderstood laws. Karma is referred to by the gurus as the law of love. It so precisely and kindly and compassionately shows you what you put out comes back. There's no punishment involved. It's just allowing you to say, okay, I had this experience. Do I really want to do this again? Or is there a different way I could do this? And for your kids, it's invaluable. And I imagine, because high tech, the way I envision it, they're in a library and they're looking at a whole bunch of screens and they're saying, okay, if I didn't bring the car home this time, or if I didn't eat my green beans at this meal, like they look at these little choices and decisions they made so they can help understand the karma they have created. But they also look at how they can help you heal through your karma, because part of overcoming your karma is helping a family member deal with their karma. And they're not responsible for your karma, but they can help give you insight. And I think that's one of the most valuable things they do. And it could be as simple as, let's be more playful. Let's not be so serious. Let's go to the beach. Your children stay very connected to you, but they do so in a way, they don't want you to cry. I have never had a spirit in the 30 years I've done this, none of them have ever said, I wish you cried more. What they say, I wish you lived more. I wish you understood more. I wish you were more playful. A common message I get is, make sure you continue to be a parent. Even if you don't have another biological child, be a parent there's so many ways you could be a parent. I'm not a parent. I can't relate to the grief that you go through in this process. But I try, being an uncle, and I'm in the Big Brothers program, and it's just wonderful to have that ability to keep parenting. And again, it's so common for kids in spirit to come through and say, you know what, develop those skills. That's going to be really, really helpful. The other thing too is playful. Like, I've never had a kid in spirit come through and say, I wish I worked harder. They might be like, I wish I completed certain tasks to understand things, but more importantly, I wish I would have spent more time being playful and being joyful and being happy and so forth. So it's those simple things. It's the simple pleasures, but time with your family, take a hot bath, read a book, go for a walk. Like, those are all that matter when you go to the other side. It's not how much is in your bank account or how many cars do you have or who's important that like that stuff is so, it's so non-existent. One of the funny things, when I first started doing readings professionally full time, I read for a whole group of parents because my book came out, and I spoke there was a couple different organizations back then. One I think was called Compassionate Friends, but I'd go and talk, and I would read for someone, and their child would come through, and I'll never forget this. This little girl came through, and she talked to her dad about drawing on the front porch. So they're sitting on the front porch. It's a beautiful summer night. The crickets are going. She gives me the whole thing, and he's just sitting there like this, and I'm like, okay, he's not feeling this. I'm not sure what's going on. So when she was finished, I said, do you understand that? And he says, yeah, but I took her to Disneyland. I took her to Paris, to the Eiffel Tower, like all those types of things. And she's talking about the front porch. I said, don't you see what she's showing you? Like what mattered? What was really meaningful? It's not the other things weren't. It's just that time they had alone, like, was just so beautiful. And another time, a father came. His son had passed unexpectedly in college, and his son kept showing me a tennis racket. I said, do you play tennis? And he said, oh, my son and I used to play all the time, but he passed several years ago, and I don't play anymore. It's like, he wants you to pick that racket up. And he's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And I'm like, it's really important. Well, several months later, the father emailed me, and he went back to tennis. And guess what? He felt such a strong connection to his son, because that's a link they had. And it was so important. And I think it's important as a parent that you don't let go of those links, that music they might like, or their favorite food, like for their birthday, make that pizza or whatever it is they liked. To me, that's so important to keep the link alive. But they're very, they're pain-free. That's the good news. And they're very playful. Even the ones that had really heavy times here, but once they look at things and they put things in perspective, it's to me, it's so beautiful to, as a teacher in a classroom, those aha moments, that's what it was all about. But talking to them in spirit, that's what makes me feel good too, is like, wow, you know, I got this lesson. I got a cousin that passed last summer. He was 50. He was still living in his mom's basement. No judgment, but the guy, he had problems with addictions. And he always was angry with me because he says, everything comes so easy to you and everything's so hard for me. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's how you're looking at things, but I always try to help him. But in spirit, it's so nice to know he's not looking that way anymore. He's looked at the choices he made, but he also sees some really good choices he made, like the parents he picked. And my aunt loves the messages I get. And it was his birthday yesterday. So I called my aunt and I said, you know, Ronnie came through and he had a couple things to say. And it was so relevant to what was going on with her. But yeah, they really want to show their appreciation and gratitude. And that's something that we want to do too. And I think it's through the energy of gratitude and appreciation that we really strengthen the link to everything.
Hey,
That's
Geof,
wonderful.
I think we got a bunch of questions coming in here. So Audrey has her hand up. Let me get back. Simone Stamp says, if my son passed away tragically, how is that process for them on the other side? Because when he was here, he mentioned he didn't want to die young.
Okay, so great question. And this is the way they make me feel. If someone passes unexpectedly, do you ever have a dream and you wake up and you're not quite sure where you're at? That's what it feels like to them. They're not quite sure where they're at initially. But what's beautiful is the way that spirit often shows me it is that it's like they arrive at a train station and there's all these people waiting for them at the train station. Even relatives they might not have never met, they'll recognize because there's an energetic fingerprint associated with them within the family. And there's this amazing celebration and gathering. It's like a big reunion and people are sharing their stories. And so it's fun because they're going to talk about you and the funny things that happened around you in this initial time. Spirit isn't really connected to their passing moment. I don't find. I find more it's where am I going and oh my gosh, this is better than I ever expected about who I'm meeting and who I'm talking to, and maybe they heard stories from about this old uncle or grandfather, but it's so cool for them to be able to meet that. And again, when you leave your physical body, it is heavy here. And I'm sure some of you have had out of body experiences when you're dreaming, and when you come back in, your whole body jerks. It's just like, I tell my friends, the earth is a beautiful place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live here. Because when I go to that higher place, it's so light, it's so joyful, it's so happy. It's really beautiful. So that trauma, what they're going to feel more is they're going to feel your pain and suffering than they actually are from the traumatic event that they went through. And they're going to try to help you understand. And many times they have a visitation. When spirit leaves quickly, they'll try to visit a friend, a family member, someone to let them know, hey, I crossed over and everything's fine. So I hope that answers that for you, Simone.
Okay, that was great. Next from Krista. She says, I'm wondering if you could comment on suicide and homicide.
Yeah, so however someone crosses over, there's no judgment. Suicide's an interesting topic. So I was raised Catholic, and I was more scared of some of the nuns than anyone else on the planet. And they always talked about purgatory. Like if I ate meat on Friday, or I didn't listen to my parents, I was going to be stuck in this purgatory. Well, I think the planet Earth feels a lot more like purgatory. But in suicide, again, there's not a judgment about how you made a choice to cross over. There is a consequence in terms of karma. And then again, remember, karma is not about punishment, but what they're going to show you is, was this the best possible thing you could have done to progress your soul? And if not, how can we set it up so the next time you come, what role can you play in your family to even help overcome that and demonstrate the value of consciousness or the value of life? There's been, Michael Newton wrote a series of books of Journey of the Soul and so forth. And he gives a good example there of what we do when we do a life review. So someone who takes their life will go and do a review, and they'll look at consequences. Okay, if I stayed, maybe if I stayed, it would have resulted in me doing an action that would have caused many people to pass away. Or maybe if I stayed, I would have had an opportunity to change the outcome of someone else's life. That you just review it, but the judgment isn't there. Like there's not this fire and brimstone, but there is a karmic responsibility with how you cross. And the thing I'd say though, Krista, to you about this is I like to think of the word intention. There's something called the law of intention. And when someone's intention, their action, it's really important. In judicial law, they're always looking at intent. First degree, second degree manslaughter, however they come up with it, they base it on, they're trying to figure out what was the intention of the individual. Well, karmically, intention is known. And if the intention was to alleviate pain that was unbearable, or if it was to disassociate from something that wasn't functional, there's biological reasons why people take their lives too. Again, it's more about what the intent is and for them to process that on the other side so that they can heal through it, but also then bring that wisdom to their family members that are still here to help them overcome the guilt and the shame and the woulda, shoulda, coulda mindset that drives people crazy. That it's so important that we master our own universe. We're all kings and queens of our own universe, and that's our mind. And that's our only kingdom that we have to rule. And the consequences and things that happen around us can influence us as to how we rule our kingdom. But again, suicide, murder, illness, disease, or an accident, because there are no accidents, how a person transitions isn't as important as the intent and the karma that's created.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you. I wanted to get to Linda because I think this addresses kind of the same thing. She asked, do you think we have a soul plan that decides when to leave Earth, or can we just decide to leave anytime? My question along with that is if we have, because I've heard some say that we have several exit points, but if there's a basic soul plan, is suicide ever part of that soul plan?
That's a great question. And what a person that I really admire is Your Soul's Gift. There's a book out by Paul Schwartz, and he addresses I think he uses 9 different mediums and psychics in his book, but they address different issues. They look at poverty, like why would someone be born in poverty? Why would someone be born into being a caretaker? Having sexuality issues, having rape and incest and things like suicide. And it's not that someone would set up in their soul program that they're going to be suicidal, but what they're going to do is they're going to make an agreement. And that's why I love the word agreement. Some people use the word contract, and that's too business to me, but an agreement, you're going to have an agreement. And let's say your agreement is, I want to come to the earth plane and I want to overcome my low self-esteem, my low self-confidence. I want to stand in my power. I want to be that warrior. And so I'll set up circumstances. I'll set up certain relationships that are going to exist. I'll have certain talents and skills, but I know it's going to be really challenging and heavy when I come here. And the choices that I make once I come here, I'm going to create more karma. And that might take me further and further away from what I came to do. So then suicide might be a gateway or doorway out of that life because of the direction or path I took it in. And I might have been in a place where I wasn't hopeless or helpless about it. You know, the same thing with incest and rape. It's not as if you're going to choose, you know, an uncle or a member of the family who is going to intentionally do that, but you are going to set up this soul has had issues in past lives where they haven't been able to control their sexuality, but I'm going to try to work on self-love. So this uncle is going to be ideal to come in, and hopefully it's going to work out this time. And then if it happens, again, it wasn't set up to happen, but it was set up so that both of you can try to overcome it. That's my understanding about it.
Makes sense. Right, I have, and excuse me if I don't pronounce your name correctly, I think it's Vahabi. As if a child didn't learn to talk before they transition, do they learn to talk when they become spirit?
Beautiful question. So I learned really quickly the challenges of doing mediumship with foreign languages. So I'm getting a message from spirit, and then I'm going to an interpreter who's then giving it to the sitter. And that makes it really, really interesting. So the language of spirit communication is the language of love. It's a vibration, it's an energy, it's a light. It transcends all barriers. So the message is absolutely available. What I find fascinating when I've done readings for people from, you know, international cultures, I can't always get the names, but I can get sometimes parts of the names. But they'll do everything they can to get the energy through. But yeah, it's all about the language of love, which is, you know, international, and the kindness that comes through and that is felt is what's really important, and not so much the words, but they can find words to share. And I'm sure some of you had experiences with someone who wasn't able to talk with their mouth, but like looking in their eyes or just their facial expressions or their features. I have a cousin, the same aunt I talked about. She has a son, 50 years old. He's never been out of bed. He's been severely mentally handicapped. But when I go sit and talk to him, I can hear his voice, and he can't talk, he makes sounds, but I could see his eyes, and he gets excited. And that same energy exists in able to communicate.
Thank you. So Linda Marie says, oh wait, where to go here? Michelle asks, what meditation and or tools do you recommend we can use to connect with our children?
Great question. So our life is a meditation. Everything we do, everything we think, everything we say, it's all one big meditation. But taking time to be open and to receive. I have a couple techniques that I absolutely love to do the most. One of them is called talking to the chair. And I actually have one of the chairs sitting next to me. My house is getting remodeled. I had a flood and all that fun stuff. So I've been confined to the bedroom. But I have the 2 hand-carved chairs from England. And I bought them because I said, those are spirit chairs. They're like 150 years old. And I face the chairs toward each other. And I welcome the spirit of anyone, like a specific family member, to come and visit for a short period of time. I like to have music on. I'm a huge classical guy. I love Chopin, Brahms, and Bach. Those tend to have the higher frequencies, but whatever you're passionate about. Or like I did a reading recently for a lady who her little baby came through, and she always played that baby Einstein music. And so she used that. But whatever connects you, and just sit. And I like to journal and doodle and sketch and get information that way, or just putting my hand on my heart and just feeling the connection. So I provide the space. And just like in any relationship you have, as time goes on, you'll be able to communicate more and more effectively. The other way I'd say that would be really important to meditate, because I truly believe in moving meditations. I get my highest thoughts and my greatest ideas. Every book I've ever written was written on a hiking trail. I get those insights and then I run to the computer, you know, come home and type. But pick an activity that you enjoyed or they enjoyed. Like the gentleman I told you about who played tennis with his son, when he started playing tennis, that's when he felt connected because his son was so passionate about that sport too. I have another, a mom, and mom was in her 60s and she took up running because her son was a track star. And she just, when she was running, she just felt so connected. She also listened to the music he liked to listen to. Like she had his, this is how long ago, it was a Walkman with a tape in it. But, you know, pick activities that you like or they like. Again, when I'm cleaning the house, I put some ABBA on and I'm dancing around. I feel so connected because I'm just open. That's what meditation to me is, being really, truly open to receive and not to be in a place of expectation or anticipation. But then there are times where I just want to be in stillness and quiet. And, but to me, the energy flows so much more with a spirit if I'm doing something in common with them. I have a really dear friend who passed away in his sleep a couple years ago, and his mom sent me his hunting knife. He was a big hunter, and when we were in high school together, we used to go fishing. And I like to just hold that knife, and I go to the cabins where we would stay and have conversations, and I can hear him clear as a bell, and boom, boom, boom. And you know, you have to think about where they feel comfortable talking to you too. And it might not be like lying in your bed. It might be, you know, going to a place that was something that they really enjoyed. So meditation is really important. I've created a couple guided meditation CDs. This one is with a harp. And there's 6 guided meditations that takes you to a spirit guide or someone in spirit. Sometimes, like I meditate 3 or 4 times a day. After lunch, when I'm a little tired, I like to do a guided meditation. So you can Google and you can look one up, like hooking up with a spirit or achieving higher consciousness, and being coached through and guided through. So there's lots and lots and lots of ways. There's not a right way or wrong way to meditate. It's just being conscious and aware and providing the space and the time to communicate. And you know, when they're in the spirit world, and this is something, Elizabeth, I didn't mention when you asked, they do have lessons and things that they do, group activities and so forth. And it's important for you to set a time aside so that they'll be available. And like, to me, I tend to talk to my relatives first thing in the morning. Used to do it at the end of the day, but then if I was tired or I ran out of time, I didn't have it, and I want to make it a priority. So 7 to 7:15 in the morning, I have an open house, and I say, whoever would like to come and visit, come and visit. And it's surprising who shows up. And what's very interesting is even people will show up that I'll have a reading for later that day, and I don't know that, and I'll be reading someone saying like, oh, your mom, Mary's coming through. Oh, Mary came through and talked to me this morning at 7:15. So it set it up that way too, because remember, spirits have free will just like you have free will. So we can't force them to come through in a reading, or they might just not be available. The other thing is they might not feel comfortable talking to that certain medium. So don't be discouraged if they don't. You know, when it comes to mediumship, they show a lot of commonality of what they have in common with me. So let's say there's a son in spirit. He's a real good tennis player, and I love tennis. I play tons of tennis. He'll feel more comfortable coming to me than someone who played squash. I don't know anything about squash. They might show me something that looks like it, but I won't have as good a dialogue with someone that is something I have in common.
Interesting. Does my daughter love roller coasters and pumpkin spice frappuccinos? I'm not doing either one of those, so I'll have to find something else. Thank you, Geof. Callison says, can you help me understand why babies or toddlers pass? My son was 13 months. He had so much more to learn. Many thanks.
But perhaps, and I, no judgment on it, but perhaps, Allison, part of this was for what you are to learn, and this child is teaching you that. I find that souls that tend to be a little bit more advanced than others will take on these things where they come and go quick, and without being connected to the child to know what their soul plan was. I believe that many times when a child leaves, whether it's before birth or just after birth, there's a great lesson for the parents and the other children in the family, and that's where you can see that as a little guardian angel, because they're teaching an extremely valuable lesson. The other thing too to understand is that child is not going to see that as a deficiency. They're actually seeing it. It's like changing your clothes. It's like getting a new outfit. Like, I'm just going to put a new outfit on. But in the process, I'm hoping that I'm going to help you understand things from a different perspective. And again, because we're in the physical plane, which is the feeling plane, we have to process those emotions to help heal and gain a greater understanding from that loss.
Everyone's saying thank you. Audra, I unmuted you so you can ask your question.
Oh, I was just wondering if you have
Volume?
Can you hear me?
Barely.
I was wondering if you could tell me if my son sends me messages that I miss. I know I miss a lot of messages, a lot of signs, and I was wondering what is he sending me?
Well, and that's where I think a reading might be valuable to you. And it's without a doubt, they're continuously sending messages. What's going to be important for you is to establish a code of communication. Now, if we have a little time, and if you'd be open to it, I can take you all through a little guided meditation where you set up a code of communication with your loved one. This is what I do in my workshops. It would take like 10 or 15 minutes. Would that be helpful?
Is everyone interested in that? Raise your thumb or something. Yeah, that sounds good. It leads into another question, Geof. Someone said, do you feel that our children are here right now? Seems like there should be a strong connection with all of the energy together.
Absolutely. I think that's why this organization is invaluable, because where two or more minds gather, the energy is exponential. And, we've learned a lot about exponential numbers with this COVID-19, that there's a great linear curve when you bring more of you together. But what's really important is if you set the intention. And why I respect this organization so much is because of the intention. The mission statement that Elizabeth read at the beginning, I believe in, and I believe a lot of you believe in that. And if we all put our energy behind that and set that intention high, you're making it more likely that you're going to connect with your loved ones. But also what's beautiful while you're sitting here together is you're helping everyone else connect on a great level. And to me, that's beautiful.
I think general consensus is yes. Everybody's saying yes. So we'll hold the questions until after, okay?
Yeah, and so can you play music on here? Like, do you have any light music? I could play on a CD player, but I'm not sure people would hear it well.
Here, Elizabeth, I'll unmute you. Hang on. It says unmute. How come I can't hear her?
Unmute.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep. I know I
Okay,
did this with Melinda. We just used her video or her music player and played the music. You have something?
Let me see if you can hear this.
Can everybody hear that?
So what I'd like you to do is get a piece of paper out, and you're going to write some things down as we go through it. I got to go get my little cheat sheet. I'll be right back.
All right.
Terry, can you hear that?
Barely. Yeah.
Okay. Problem is, I don't have my I'm going to go get my speaker. I have a speaker for
That'll
yoga.
work. That'll work.
That'll
Okay.
be better. I'll be right back.
I unmuted everybody if anybody wants to say anything. I thought I did. Yeah.
This is very lovely.
Hi, Vihavi. How are you? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, yes, it is proper. You are saying it correct. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you've all watched,
Oh, wait. Ah. Okay.
there we go. No, I was saying, I come from a family that has a lot of family and friends with cops and judges and lawyers and attorneys. So we always like those shows. But if you ever watch a show like Criminal Minds, or where they're creating a profile for the killer to try to solve the problem, well, we're going to develop a profile for your child so that you're going to find ways and means that it's more likely for them to come through and communicate with you. And we're going to start with visuals, and then we're going to do auditory things, and then we're going to do sensory things and taste things. So this way, you can start to set up a code of communication, your own personal code. And what's really important is that you're going to create it based on your personal history with this spirit, your child. The history you have with your child is really important, and you want to choose things where you have the greatest sensation or feeling associated with it. And when I look at certain things, like I'm going to give an example of one thing you're going to look at is a special gift that you gave to them. Okay, and I give the example with my grandma, who's I'm closest to this in spirit. My gift to her was always every June, I went and spent a week with her, and we made a vegetable garden. And then I would go at the end of the summer and we, get everything out of the garden. But it was, to me, that was always such a special gift. So you want to think in terms of those special times that are shared with your child. As I go through and read these things, and as I go through them, you might not have an answer for everything, but just you can leave it blank. But we're going to look at a series of 10, 10, and 10. So there's going to be 30 items, the 10 visual, 10 auditory, and 10 sensory. And you're going to make a list, and then I'm going to have you do something with the list after. So if we could start, I'm going to first do a meditation where you blend with your energy. Blending is a really important word when it comes to mediumship, because you're an energy field. And one of my favorite things to talk about, and I even wrote a book about it, is chakras. I like to help people understand that you're an energy system, and your goal is to maintain harmony and balance in your energy system, and that's how you stay healthy physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And when your energy field is really strong, it has a greater ability to attach to your child's in spirit, because their energy field's at a higher vibrational frequency. So we're going to get you high a little bit here, and then we'll go from there. But I like to use music to do that, because it has such a nice vibration. So if we're going to do a little guided meditation, then we'll shut the music off, and then I'm going to read some statements to you, and I'd like you to write them down, answers relative to your history or your connection with your child. And then we're going to talk about all of them at the after we go through this. So were we able to get music to work?
Yes, I just want to see if you can hear this, because I can put it louder. I'm not sure if this is... Can people hear that? Can you hear that, Geof?
Yeah, I can hear it.
I can hear it.
Is that okay? Too loud?
Everybody's saying yes, so I guess.
Is it too loud? Too soft?
So the important thing is just close your eyes and take a deep breath. And I want you to feel a gold light at the top of your head, associated with your crown chakra. And imagine it opening up your crown chakra, which connects you to all of life, to all there is. And imagine this gold light now coming down over your forehead, your third eye chakra, opening up to your intuition, that inner voice, the voice of your own spirit. And this gold light continues working its way down into your throat. And your throat chakra is your center of communication, of self-expression. And now imagine this gold light coming down into your heart, the center of your energetic universe. This is where you create your beliefs. It's the center of kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love. And this gold light now settles down into your solar plexus, your center of power, self-esteem, and self-respect. And then this gold light settles down into your sacral chakra, the center of gratitude, appreciation, abundance, contentment. And it continues extending down your legs, your root chakra, connecting you to the Great Mother. This is your center of security and safety. So just imagine your whole physical body beaming with this beautiful gold healing light. And feel your entire auric field with this gold light. And imagine this gold light as a sun, attracting your child from spirit. Your child is pulled toward this light, and feel their light. And just take a moment and feel their presence. Feel their light, feel their love. And be open to the impressions that they're going to gift you right now to help you develop a connection with them. So imagine the two of you now are sitting on the front porch, and you get out an old scrapbook, and we're going to look at some photographs. And the first photograph is going to be an image of an important time the two of you shared together. So under number 1, make a quick note of that important photo that shows that time, that special time the two of you had together. And as you flip through the book, the next photograph, number 2, you see, is a location or a place the two of you shared a lot of time. A location or a place. It might be a room in a house. It might be a vacation place. But where's an important location or place the two of you shared? Number 3 is a photograph of a special gift you gave to them while they were here. A special gift that you gave to them while they were here. Number 4 is a photograph of a special gift they gave to you. A special gift that they gave to you. The fifth photograph is a photograph of a special celebration or holiday you spent together. A special celebration or holiday. The sixth photograph is an image of a piece of clothing they like to wear. A piece of clothing they like to wear. Number 7 is a photograph of them doing their favorite hobby or passion. Photograph of them doing their favorite hobby or passion. Number 8 is a photograph of an animal. It could be a stuffed animal or a pet that you'd associate with them. Okay, an animal, a stuffed animal, or a pet that you'd associate with them. Number 9, a color that you associate with them. Okay, a color. And number 10 is a photograph of a unique physical feature about them. It might be their eyes, their smile, a birthmark, something like that, but a unique physical feature. Okay, out of that first 10, circle 3 that really are powerful and strong, you feel linked. Out of those 10, pick 3 or 4 that are really powerful. Okay, now imagine that your child is putting a headset on you, and these are auditory things. These are things you're going to listen to through the headset. And the first thing you're going to hear is a favorite style or type of music you'd associate with your child. If a favorite style or type of music. Second, you're going to hear a favorite artist or a specific song that you associate with them. A specific artist or a specific song that you'd hear connected to your child. The third song you're going to hear is a song that you associate with them. When you think of them, is there a song that you have? Okay, the fourth, what's a sound in nature that you'd associate with them? A sound from nature that you just feel connected to them. Number 5, a favorite saying or words that they would say to you. Favorite saying or words they would say to you. Sometimes when people leave or they come home, there's a certain thing they might say. And number 6 would be a favorite saying or words that you would say to them. Okay, favorite saying or words that you would say to them. Number 7, pick an item that makes the sound that you'd associate with them. So this might be something connected to work, hobby, but just what's something that makes a sound that you'd associate with them? Number 8, music from a movie or a TV show that you'd associate with them. Okay, music from a TV show or a movie that you'd associate with them. Number 9, a nickname they called you. Okay, if they had a nickname for you, you know, even if it was mommy or mom or ma. And number 10 would be a nickname you called them. Now, out of that group of 10, pick 3 or 4 that really kind of stood out for you. Okay, and now for the last 10, we're going to look at sensory, smelling, feeling, tasting. So number 1, a smell or an odor that you'd associate with them. A smell or an odor, and it could be connected to their hobby or it might be something they wore. But what is a smell or an odor you'd associate with them? Number 2, a taste or a flavor you'd associate with them. A taste or a flavor of something you'd associate with them. Number 3, what's a dominant emotion you'd feel from them? A dominant emotion you'd feel from them. And number 4 is, where do you feel it in your body? Like when you feel them, you know, is it your heart? Is it your throat? Is your gut? You know, is it your forehead? Like, where do you feel them? Okay, next, what was their favorite food to eat? Their favorite food to eat. The next one, what is a plant, a tree, or a flower that you'd associate, that you could smell with them? A plant, a tree, or a flower? Next, what is a feeling you have about their personality trait, a dominant personality trait? Next, when is the optimal time to feel them? Like maybe there's a certain time during the day, but when is it a time that you optimally feel them? What's a scent or smell in nature you'd associate with them? And last, feel a connection. Like, how would you describe a feeling of something, a piece of clothing that they like to wear? And again, in this list, circle 3 or 4 that are dominant. So out of this whole list of 30 items, there's probably 9 or 10 that really are connecting points that will really help you feel connected. And so this would be an opening dialogue you can create and generate with your child and keep developing it. What I like to do in my workshops is I give everyone a little journal, and I tell them, take a whole month and every day put things in this journal that you're acknowledging your connections, so that you're setting the intention, but then you're also making note of their messages. And nothing is too small, nothing's too subtle. It's not by chance when that hummingbird flies up to the window, or when you hear that song on the radio, or when someone in front of you talks about strawberry ice cream, and you know there's a connection. I mean, there are so many ways and means they communicate, and it's beautiful. They're creative, they're innovative, and they're enthusiastic. And sometimes they want to hit you in the head and say, hey, I'm here, pay attention. But I'd also encourage you to do this with other family members. And your lists of things might be a little different, but there'll be things in common, like, oh, she loves spaghetti, like I can smell spaghetti sauce, or she loved to wear pink. But it's fun then as a family too. You can start to notice things that happen, and it's amazing. So that's just a little exercise I like to help people to start creating your own little code of communication with your child, so that you can develop it. And just like with any language, your vocabulary develops over time. So the more you use these techniques, the better you'll get at communicating, and the more words and feelings and emotions you'll have to associate with them.
Thank you. I thought that was great. You ready for some more questions, Geof?
Sure.
Okay, Rhonda would like to know, do our loved ones know ahead of time when we are going to cross, and do they prepare, I guess, on a soul level?
They do, and that's something I ask them a lot about, because I say, when someone passes unexpectedly, they know on that side. I'm not sure what the time length is, but they do have an understanding. And like I say, the way they show it to me, they're like at the train station, and there's this beautiful poem I read to my parents last year. I found they love ships and the ocean and sailing, and it's the poem is basically, it talks about how we send them off on this side, and how there's people at the dock waiting on the other side. And so they're there, they're anticipating and excited about them coming. And there's nothing, no notice is too short as far as their understanding and knowing.
Galen asks, how does a parent, or I guess can a parent, learn about the soul plan of their child who passed?
So you can have a limited understanding, but when I do my soul progression work, it focuses on your soul and your understanding. And it's important that you understand that comprehensively, so that you'll have a better understanding of those around you just by understanding your own soul plan. But it's important for them to share what they want to relative to their plan. Now, when we come into an incarnation, we come in with blinders on. And again, the way that Spirit has shown me this is, let's imagine you're going to school and you're learning about algebra. Well, if you have algebra and trig and geometry and calculus, there's just, you can't really hone in on the lesson. So you come in, like they say, with blinders on, so you're focused on this life. You can get insight and information about past lives to help you understand this life. Also, you can get insight about the people around you, but really, like I've done soul progressions on, people that call themselves soulmates, and that word soulmate is glorified. A soulmate is any two souls that are helping each other progress. Your child certainly is playing a role in your progression. So you can get limited access, but not details, because that's up to their soul and the progression of their soul.
Okay, Linda, you had your hand up and now it's down. Did you have a question? You can unmute yourself if you like. I have two Lindas, so I'm not sure which one it was. Okay. So Linda said if a child leaves before their soul plan, doesn't that affect everyone connected to them? I think you kind of answered that. So
Yeah, and just know that the plans are really organic and they're very flexible, and they're not like we think a plan is written out here. There's something called the law of vibration, and everything's changing constantly. So even your plan is morphing into that relative to your soul family members. And so it's very dynamic. It's very, again, there's a lot of energy behind it. So I will tell you, no one ever leaves unless they're supposed to leave at that time. And again, even if they're not consciously aware of it, on some level, their soul was aware that there was going to be a departure. And souls just don't go. It's pretty amazing. I think the thing that attracted me to study molecular and cell biology is I wanted to understand the physiology of the physical body. Our bodies are absolutely amazing. And what's beautiful about them is they mimic the metaphysical stuff. So when we look, for instance, at the heart chakra, and you're looking at the law of circulation, you have a system that works on circulation. You have a respiratory system that has to do with harmony and balance. And your physical body is so in tune with what's going on metaphysically. And that's why there's a strong correlation through the chakras about the wisdom of the life lessons and the plans you're learning individually and within your family.
anybody else have a question? Galen, here, I'll unmute you, huh? I think you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, it's the soul's journey. If I understand to some extent how we have a plan for our soul on earth, or our soul has a plan on earth, but is that plan continued in spirit, or does it become a totally different? So it kind of leads to like how do they know what to do once they've crossed?
See, that's a great question, because it's not linear. When we're in the physical plane, we think very linearly, and it's all relative. Like Einstein's theory of relativity, everything's relative to each other, but it's multidimensional. And I don't know if any of you are Star Trek fans, and I haven't watched a whole lot of Star Trek, but there's one time I saw an episode and they're playing like chess, but there's like 3 dimensions of it. And so when you're moving on this dimension, it's affecting the other dimensions. That's how they show me our plans are. They actually are multi-layered and they're multi-dimensional. But when the plan is set, and again, the plan is just, okay, I'm going to explore my ability to express myself, throat chakra. I want to be creative and innovative. But I'm going to have free will to come here and make choices to work on that. And so I'm not quite sure where my endpoint's going to be when I finish this life, but I'm going to process it once I do, and then determine, is that something that would benefit me to work on more? It's not saying that at the end of this life, I'm going to be at level, let's say there's 10 levels with throat chakra. I'm not going to be at level 7. It's going to be, I'm going to explore and get so much information, and then I'm going to apply that and assess it, and then determine, do I want to elaborate on that in another lifetime? Or do I want to have the opportunity to show my soul family members something around that?
I have a question, Geof, because I'm interested in all of it. You know, when people that are astral travelers document what they see. So my question is always, for my daughters, what are you doing now? I mean, we don't become just globs of light and not do anything anymore when we transition. So are children able to experience things that they didn't experience here? And how does that work when we cross over? Somebody had said to me that we're not missing anything. You know, if we choose to experience that when we cross, we're able to do that. Is that your, what you've learned, or?
Yeah, so think of it this way. So when you come to when your spirit chooses to come here, so let me start with your soul. So I like to think of the soul as a bathtub filled with water, okay? When your soul decides to have an incarnation, it's like taking a glass of water out of the bathtub, which is your spirit. So your spirit is part of that whole soul. It comes and has the experience, it gathers all the insight, and then when you cross over, you dump the water back in the bathtub, and so the information is shared. But what's mind-blowing to us is we actually have many lifetimes at the same time, and we would hardwire, or we would probably burn our circuits trying to process this. But imagine you're having multiple lifetimes at the same time, but you can think of multiple glasses of water coming from the bathtub and then boom, and dumping them all back in. So we really get to play lots of parts and roles. The most important choice you make when you decide to incarnate, so you come up with your soul agreement, and let's say the soul agreement was to learn about love and compassion and kindness and forgiveness. The most important choice you make next is the body you choose. And it's like Halloween. You're going to pick a costume that makes it more likely for you to experience that chakra, that whatever that soul is. So you can come as a witch or a princess or all the flavors in between. The next important choice is the parents that you pick. And the parents that you pick are the people who are most responsible for guiding you in your early stages. So it doesn't have to be biological. You know, there could be a soul agreement where someone gets to someone through adoption, but it's the parents that are most responsible for working with that child. So they're going to pick parents that are going to help them understand the heart chakra. So someone might pick a real SOB father and a passive mom, or they might pick some mom that has really problems with, you know, vulnerability and so forth. But see, that's all part of the plan. So the body that they choose, which is the costume, the personality, the parents they choose, and then they're going to choose significant relationships before they even come here, because they're setting themselves up to work on that plan. But how it all unfolds determines the day-to-day choices that they make and the people around them make. So there's not a predictable outcome that will come from it, other than there tends to be a journey toward enlightenment.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Blanca would like to know, if your child was adopted from a different country, will his soul go with his biological family or with the family that adopted him? I had a reading and someone came in with him, and I don't really know if it was my family or the other family.
So when it comes to the greatest impact is who has the most influence of the child. Sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's an adopted parent, sometimes it's you know, another sibling. What's important is the experience they have with that, whoever's most influential. It's not biological by any means. It doesn't have to be. When we have family members that are really difficult and not progressing and causing lots of dramas and stuff, you're not obligated to stay with anybody. You have free will. And I think some of the worst mistakes people make is they think, oh, this is my family, I have to stay with them, even if it goes against everything they're learning and understanding. And so what's important is that you know, like attracts like. That's natural in all biological systems, that we tend to be attracted to what's like. And so be open to gravitate toward those that are most influential. Now, Rudolf Steiner is one of my favorite psychologists from history. Rudolf Steiner broke off from Freud. He believed that we create our soul family, and we're spending more time with the people that we're at when we're in our 30s and 40s are more our soul family than our biological family. Now, some of us are still around our biological family, that's okay, but the friendships you've made as you progress through life, who you've decided to spend your time with in those years shows as your soul has become awoken, you're going to be more apt to be around your soul family members that are more like-minded to you than the biological.
Makes sense. Thank you. Erin, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Last year when my brother got really sick and he went into the hospital, and I'd say the night after we visited him, the first night that he was in the hospital, that night I had a dream that I was in the neighbor's yard. He was very close to the neighbors. They crossed over years ago. And I had a dream I was in the neighbor's yard, and I looked in the distance. There was like a bonfire and people kind of dancing around and like getting ready to, I knew from that it was a celebration and they were getting ready to, for him to come over. I didn't know if that was an actual dream or was it, was I getting a sign that, something that he was going to cross over?
You see, nothing to me is by chance, nothing's a coincidence, everything's a message. And to me, that's a very strong message. When I got out of grad school, I started volunteering at hospice. And my friends all thought I was morbid because of the death thing, but I found it so fascinating because I often found that people that are getting ready to cross were talking to relatives that are already crossed over, or they'd have images of them being ready to pick them up, to take them over. And to me, that's fascinating.
Interesting. Do our kids' souls know if they're going to return in the same family again as a rebirth or connection? I guess within the same soul family, right?
Right. So here's my understanding of the whole way, the hierarchy. Your soul family consists of several hundred souls. So you're going to stick around with those souls. You'll play different roles. So your child you might be their child in the next life. You might be their sibling. You might be their aunt or uncle. You'll have a connection, but they vary from lifetime to lifetime. The beauty of reincarnation is it gives you the opportunity to experience life from many perspectives: male, female, rich, poor, empowered, disempowered, and then you share those roles with members in your soul family. But you get to decide. So when you go over, you decide, and then they're going to decide with you. And it's kind of like, hey, do you want to be my mom in this lifetime? We can work on this stuff that maybe we were working on this lifetime. Or hey, do you want to be my twin sister in my next life? It's interesting how we work through this and we work together and choose.
I always thought my daughter was like, she always tried to mother me. So I always wondered if it was fun, and just think of it funny, maybe we were reverse roles last time. So
One, and there might be even a memory that associates you with that.
right.
Yeah.
We have one last question. I think we're going to get close to, we're at about 20 till. Simone says, I've been told that my son was an old soul, meaning he's had many lives to some, and to others, it means he has grown in soul and didn't need that many years as myself. But when I go home, we're on the same level. I wasn't a great mom, but I'm so concerned that he would reincarnate with another mom, and I didn't do good in this lifetime, and there's a lot of regrets.
And so this is what I'd say. We're all from the same stuff. We're all the same age. It's just some of us identify more with our spirit. And when we're more spiritually minded, we tend to be considered old soul. If we're more connected to the physical plane, we tend to be considered younger soul, but we're really all the same age. It's just where are we putting our attention relative to our consciousness. And in terms of whether you're a good mom or a bad mom, that's your judgment of yourself. Your situation, I'm sure, was ideal in whatever was happening with the progression of your child. And that's where you have to let go of judgment, because your child chose you, and there was somewhat of a knowing and understanding of why they did. But the lesson is for you to forgive yourself. That sounds like a self-forgiveness type of lesson, and those are big. You know, it's not by chance. If you look at epidemiology on the planet now, many adults, the number one killer for adults is heart disease. That's heart chakra stuff. That's self-love stuff. That's forgiveness stuff. There's not, you know, it's not by chance that that disease is showing up so prevalently, because so many people are working on that. That's the stuff I find fascinating.
I love those connections. I had a heart attack when I was 43 and had open heart surgery, and that was exactly, my life had been extremely painful and full of trauma. So it makes perfect sense to me now that I understand it better. Anybody else have questions? I was going to leave some time for Geof to talk a little bit about what he does, in case you're interested in signing up for classes with him or seeing his books or booking a reading. Geof, if you want to talk a little bit about that for a minute.
Yeah, sure. So I have a couple different flavors of readings. I have mediumship readings where I connect you with loved ones in spirit, telephone, in person, Skype, Zoom. And then I have what are called chakra alignment readings, where I help you balance your energy through your chakras. And it deals with prayers and affirmations. And then I offer a soul progression reading, and that's a little different from the other ones. What you do is you submit information. I do a process of self-hypnosis, and over the course of a week, I generate a 6 to 8 page report, and I share that report with you at the time of your reading. And then the last type of reading I do, which is fun, is they're called psychic ribbon readings, and I have 23 colored ribbons. And I choose ribbons and look at the colors of them, and I relate them to your energy field to help you understand your soul path and just things that you might be working through in this lifetime. I also offer Zoom workshops, and then they're all different topics: intuition, meditation, spirit communication, understanding your empathic nature. And then finally, I do offer mentorships where I work one-on-one with individuals in 3 sessions to 5 sessions on a specific topic. Understanding your energy field is one, developing your intuition so that you can connect more. And then another one is spirit communication, developing your abilities. So I spent 20 years in higher ed teaching. I love teaching. I just like my subject material more because I have a lot more freedom to do and to go where I want with it. I'm very passionate about helping people understand their level of consciousness and just how incredible our minds are and what we're able to do. I've been fortunate to be on lots of radio shows. I'm on Coast to Coast and things like that. And I just love the opportunity like today to share. And these are my insights. I mean, you can take what feels right for you and throw out what doesn't, but we've all had different experiences and different perspectives about things, but this is what's been shown to me and to help. And I've always was that little pain in the butt with my dad. Why? He said, I asked why more than anything on the planet, but it's through that I try to understand the meaning of life and understand why are we here? Like, what are we doing?
Absolutely. And so everybody is saying thank you so much, how helpful it was, Geof, very uplifting. They all love the meditation. How can, if they wanted to get a reading, they just go to geofjowett.com?
Yeah, my website lets you, you can go on there and schedule. I'm going to be here for a couple weeks, and then I'm taking the month of July off. I actually go back east to see my family, but I'm also speaking at Lilydale, which is the International Center for Modern Spiritualism, and they're doing most of their stuff via Zoom, but I'll at least be Zooming with them. And but just taking a little family time, and then I'll be back in August.
Okay. So if anybody books with you, you want to let them know that they were in this meeting?
Yeah, and what I offer is, $10 off any of my services for anyone that attended the meeting today. And all you have to do is let me know. And when you go through the process of scheduling, when you get to the end, it gives you the option to pay in person. You put that and then just message me, and I can give you my Venmo or my PayPal account so that you can, get the discount.
Okay. I think I just put your website in the chat box.
Yeah, it's just my first name and my last name, and Geof is spelled really weird.
J-E, I got it. G-E-O-F.
And it's one F because in kindergarten, I had a project where I had to write my name 25 times with crayons on construction paper. And I told my parents, I'd save so many pieces of paper and crayons if I did one F, and that stuck. So I was a little conservative dude from way back then. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. I'm going to unmute everybody and let them say goodbye. Geof, we'd love to have you back again at a later date. And you all should be unmuted, I think.
Thank you, Terry and Jeff.
Thank you. That was
Absolutely.
wonderful.
you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jeff.
That was
Thank you, Jeff. That was
amazing.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right. See you all soon. All
Okay.
right. Thanks again, Geof. All right, bye-bye.
Good night.